Alright, Gabby, let's take a look at your essay. MLA format first, so we have this is correct, this is all correct. You got an extra space here. I would maybe get rid of all of this. This is your title, An Uncertain Future. I like that concept of a title because I actually really like your thesis statement. Okay, first problem. You got to ease the reader into this introductory paragraph. You jump right into talking about Macbeth. You haven't introduced that it's a play by William Shakespeare, or had a really good beginning introduction statement. It could have been a quote. It could have been something about, kind of easing into the disease, something like that. So first you're going to have this attention getter. Then you're going to expand on it. Then you're going to introduce the actual disease. So you don't introduce that to the very end of your body paragraph. So you got to introduce it before that to show the reader that Macbeth suffers from it. So you got to do that more up here. Then you get into the symptoms. First, comma, sleeping becomes a problem because of a mistake that makes it a consequence. Then guilt makes the list with the mistakes made and it ends up destroying many people's lives. Here's two complete sentences separated by a conjunction. You need a comma there. Because of the time quickly makes the illness even stronger with his murdering deeds. This doesn't look like a symptom though, and again this looks like something you would put in with this up here. Post-traumatic is hyphenated, and then you want to do PTSD after that. So I'm still a little unclear what all your main points are going to be other than sleeping and guilt. Maybe, I don't know, was it murder? I guess I'll get down there and figure it out. But this is the part that I like. He makes him envision a future that he's not meant to live. This is a really intriguing statement. Now, overall, the thesis statement is not worded correctly. But I really like that concept. I really hope it means something a little bit later on as I read, because I think that's a really great, intriguing idea as we move forward. Alright, so it can be a problem when there's something in the back of their mind that just keeps on tugging on their guilty strings. Okay, it's not a bad topic sentence actually for what you want to do. Has a thought he will not sleep from his murdering deeds. Clean up some of these. Read these sentences out loud, Gabby, and I think you'll understand what needs to be done. Macbeth has that thought as he will not sleep from his murdering deeds. Has that thought as he will not. I don't know. It just seems awkwardly worded. He's reminiscent about what just happened, what he had just done. I guess you could use that. He says, and use the correct quote within a quote one, so you use the correct single quotes there. But your period needs to be on this side. This occurred for others living in the castle. I guess you're going to talk about sleepwalking, but that's don't get him and her confused. This has got to be about him only. In reality, cannot stand think of being guilty and covering up with more violence. This is actually in the next paragraph. You're going to talk about guilt in the next one. And then you jump into sleep again. And it plays a huge role in someone having the stress disorder and having bad dreams and visions that can occur on occasions. So obviously the beginning paragraph or the parentheses should be right there, so you need a space there. And you wouldn't use the period there, you use it afterwards, which you have too many spaces here. You got 1, 2 spaces there, so you're going to fix that. So here's where I'm getting lost though. This is supposed to be about sleep, but then you jump into another symptom is of difficulty sleep is being easily startled. So I know it's kind of a sub thing of sleeping, but this also doesn't really relate to what you've been talking about in this paragraph. So I think it's hard to tuck it in this paragraph and call it good. So you might want to move this, either make it a new one and expand on it, or I'm not sure, but I think you can add more if you really wanted to. So his way of fixing the problem was to kill more people, which leads to more guilt and suspicion by others, which led to more guilt. And 2 periods there, so only need 1. So guilt leads to guilt, I guess. I think you can phrase that a little bit better, that once someone gets that guilty conscious, it's really hard to bring them back, something like that. You need a, which is your transitional statement, which is not bad, leading into your paragraph on guilt. So in your body paragraph, we're going to talk about guilt. I think you bring up a lot of good points in here, Gabby, but again, I'd really recommend that you go back and reread some of these lines, because I think you'll understand that they're a little bit awkwardly worded, or you're missing a word, or wrong tense on a verb. But just go back here and look at it. You got too many spaces here. There's another one, I think, later on where you have too many spaces. But you get into a lot of plot. I don't get what these thoughts were telling him to not do it, because he respected him. Like, I'm assuming you mean he respected Duncan, but you didn't make that clear. So you have the quote in there about calling him a coward, which is good. If not, he isn't a man and is merely a coward, which we kind of got that already, that you already said he called him a coward and that he should be a man to do this. It can have different effects. Some react by not letting it bother them. Others resort to hurting themselves or other people. And he falls under the later category, to get out of the way and to cope with this sense of power. This could be a good thesis statement too, but you are going to talk about the idea that he's not meant to live something. So if that's the case, I think you need to really make that stronger here, the idea that he's not meant to live the life that he's leading right now. Out of it led to him living with guilt until it ultimately killed him from his insane ways. Well, I don't know if his guilt really killed him from his insane ways. It's more like Macduff's sword. So if we did a play of this, or like a more, I don't know. Anyways, so moving on. So we talk about the guilt taking over. Didn't even act as if he cared that his wife died. He was just so used to killing and watching people die that he had guilt, that the guilt had made him lose his way of feeling sorry, or having a way of displaying grief. I think you can make this a little bit better worded. Some of the deeds done and tense dramatic scenes afterward would have caused him to at least have a very bit of grief, but unfortunately didn't. So you don't need a comma here. In that case, this is not a complete sentence, so you don't need to separate it. Again, you do a good job of transitions, Gabby, but I still don't know if you've really got to the heart of that thesis statement, the idea that he's not meant to live this life despite the actions that he does. So I'm really not sure that you're at that spot. All right, so we have a lot of plot in here. What I'm missing and what I don't see, Gabby, is references to outside sources. I don't really see those. The other thing, which I'm sorry I didn't bring this up until now, is you're doing the citation wrong for the quotes. It's 2.2.35 and 36. So you got to go back there and fix these. They're just dots. They're not colons. So in this paragraph, you're talking about feeling tense and on edge, and how he's uneasy. So again, you have a lot of plot in here. I like convincing conversation and arguing. I like that. Sounds good. He finally decides to do it. He soon realizes the entire rest of his life he would have this feeling of guilt and of a dirty murderer. So I don't know if that's the right phrasing there. To remind him of his bloody deeds. I like the idea he realized the rest of his life. That's getting into the thesis statement. You need more of that in the other body paragraphs. But then you get into hallucinations, which I don't think, the feeling of being tense and on edge, I don't know if that works here. I think you could use this earlier maybe. Guilt led him to the stress and visions. So that would make it a little bit more sense. I think this is a worthless quote. If I stand here, I saw him. That's just him seeing the banquet's ghost. Also, frightened and startled, comma, he talks to the visions of the ghost, to vault and quit my sight. Again, you're just citing plot. That does not helping you analyze anything. And again, he yells because he's supposed to be dead and buried. You need to go back, again, to your thesis and make it come alive in your body paragraphs and tie them together somehow. So when we get to the conclusion, he shows that he truly has post-traumatic stress disorder. This is not your thesis statement. You got to work on that. You need a sentence of summary per body paragraph. So you have to go back through and summarize each body paragraph. He lost his wife and many good friends, no comma, due to his fear of losing power. This is a run-on sentence. Macbeth may have thought his future was made, but his acts of bravery and the ability to believe what he is told, he destroyed his future and everything good it may have held for him. Again, just kind of poorly worded, and I think you could break that sentence up. But this is closer to the thesis, really, which should be first. and that means you don't have a real strong ending sentence. Works cited page. This is actually in order, but it's not in order the way you wrote it, because ST would come after SH, but you shouldn't even have this in here. It should just start with this. So you say you cited these sources, kiddo, but I didn't see any sources cited within the text. So you need to go back through and look at the paper and find out what words aren't your own, what do you have to look up, and then add those in-text citations in here. You do a lot of things well, Gabby, for a first draft of a paper, or a first final draft at least, but I think you still got a long ways to go. So hopefully we'll see another draft out of you.